a clear goal that a character can have that can be defined by a verb.
Well, I guess when I'm talking about a clear goal, like I think from an acting standpoint, when you do a character analysis and you get a role or something, and you start your analysis, one of the first questions you're going to ask is, what do I want as this character? Like, what do I want in this scene? What do I want? And those wants can change throughout the film or throughout the story. But you should know what you want or what you're fighting for from moment to moment, because that's actually the whole point, is for you to pursue that goal as honestly and truthfully as you can. And the best way to do that is, it's soft and messy if you use things like, I want to be something. We try to steer away from to be. I want to be this. I want to feel that. You really want to say, I want, I'm going to seduce this person, or I'm going to, I don't know, so some kind of action verb, something that gives you an action to pursue. Because it's so much easier to say, if I told an actor, I want you to be angry, that's a hard thing to just come up with and feel like it's honest and organic. But if I tell you to slam your hand on the table and throw something at someone, chances are you do those actions and that emotion's going to come out.
Yeah, I know there are some actors who prepare their lines by going through each line, saying, okay, what do I want with this line?
What do I want?
With this line?
Yep.
And then the second half of that want is, how far am I willing to go to get it, right? Because that's when you bring in something like high stakes. You say to yourself, yes, I want this, but like, how far am I willing to go to get that? How important is it to me? And obviously, there's many different choices you can make as an actor of like how far you're willing to go to get something. But you always, as the actor, want to pick the high stakes.
Can I throw an example?
Yeah,
I think. So, who here has watched Black Sails?
Oh, Steven's Black. He
I love
loves
it.
Black
Oh, come on, everyone.
Steve, me, you, and Bob were the only people that raised our hands.
That's not true. So listen, the reason why I bring that up, Charlie knows, she knows what time it is. The thing about Black Sails is all the main characters in that series are this on steroids. They all have clear goals. They are willing to do anything to achieve their goals. They're fearless and bold in every scene, in every episode. They push the story forward by just being relentless in pursuing what they want. And I think that and you could tell that's how that was written, that's how it was acted, that typifies that series and why every character in that series works.
Well, because we don't watch movies about blah blah blah. I'm gonna go buy some celery.
Sometimes
it's
you do.
all.
Well, that's an interesting point too. When you talk about stories in general, I say this all the time. Like, when I do a lot of theater, so when you're analyzing a play and you're like, well, you're reading like Chekhov or something. You're like, they're just sitting around talking at a dinner table, eating pancakes or eating breakfast or pork chops or something, and you're like, why does this matter? And you have to find the meaning in it, because obviously, every story is purposeful. It's not just one day in someone's life. It might seem like that, but obviously something special or unique is happening, and that's why it's a story.
No, wait, this is about Chekhov, like when he was in Russia before he joined the Enterprise? Was he Russian, by the way? What accent was that? All right, let's.
Joke in my head.
Yeah. All right, let's go down the list though, because we literally bullet point one. We haven't even gotten to a character yet, and we have like 3 more minutes. So let me cruise through these. The characters have to have flaws. You can't have perfect characters. Even a character like James Bond, like, it would be refreshing if we saw a little bit more of the character. I'll get into that later, but flaws are very important. The character, empathy is a very important thing for the character. They have their ability to connect to other characters. They have to be empathic, or else we're not going to feel what they're feeling. High stakes, we already covered that. Belief, the ability to believe in the imaginary world in the script. So the character, the actor, the writing, the director, all of these things have to converge. So we, as the audience, believe that character is real and that character belongs in the world that they live in. So it is odd to watch a movie where you're looking at it like the character doesn't seem right for some reason. This happens. I can't give an example, but imagine if there was a character in the movie Blade Runner that didn't seem like they fit in the world for some reason. Well, that's bad writing, at its core. Relationships, of course, the character has to develop relationships, and inside that relationships point, I want to add a little thing.
I have a good example.
All right, go ahead.
How about Brad Pitt and Troy?
Yeah.
Like, I was not buying him.
He didn't fit in that world.
Basically,
Yep.
he worked great, but like, you've got him next to Peter O'Toole and all these other guys who are these great Shakespearean actors, and then he's trying to handle this language, this beautiful, rich language.
He was slipping in and out of his accent in the whole movie.
He kind of had more of an American feel or sense to him, so it seemed really out of place to me against all those other.
Or recent example, A Wrinkle in Time, right?
Oh,
The three women.
I love that play. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're like that's you know what's her name?
Oprah Winfrey?
Oprah Winfrey, you know, it's like that's not the witch or whatever they were supposed to be. Totally didn't fit. It was completely out of place.
The accent thing reminded me of Kevin Costner and Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
another good
Why the
example.
fuck is this
Although
guy?
I am one of the few people who still loves that movie, Alan Rickman.
It's a fun movie, but
He sucked.
Alan Rickman.
He sucked.
Alan Rickman's the best.
Because it's dull, you twit, it'll hurt more.
Cancel Christmas.
When he cut his own hand, he's swearing the oath, it was like, you have no soul, dude. Like, whatever, what an asshole. All right, so relationships. This is the thing I say all the time when I talk about movies and characters. There are these little things that happen in movies that you're not that conscious of. The characters look at each other. They throw a look. They have a relationship. You see something going on, and if character A looks at character B, and they have that moment of, did you see that? Or what do you think about that? Like they're just checking in with each other. That tells us they have a relationship. And that builds our feeling for and understanding of the character.
It's interesting that you say that. I just listened to a book from Rob Lowe, which I don't know, right? Like it was terrible. But we just listened to this book, and he
wrote the book?
He wrote the book. He actually wrote 2 books, and Liz and I did a road trip, and we listened to one of his audiobooks. And he was talking about relationships, and he actually said that he had this muddled idea of relationships, and he's like, when actors are trying to make it look like they're connecting or that they're listening to the other characters on the scene, they will pretend to like look at someone else or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know, I wasn't completely buying it. I think I agree with Jay where you have subtlety, and if you are listening, we do tend to not always focus on the person who's talking, but we look around at other people, or we look down at our hands, or we nod, or we listen in that way. I don't think it's over the top to say that that's
his comment is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
If the director's doing their job, they are going to set up a shot to just have that character. You have to look at that other person when they're saying this, throw the look. I mean, it's like, it's obvious. It has to happen.
And not only that, but I think it's important for each character to know what their relationships are to the other people. I think, we're probably not going to get to it, but one of my favorite characters that does this is Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Yeah. Doesn't matter who he's in the room with. It could be like somebody serving coffee, sits over there, he like makes a little comment, looks at it, and like immediately establishes a relationship with them, one way or the other. Some are people he likes, some are people he doesn't like, some are just to have fun with, but he's always building that relationship, and I think that's a
good example of the actor bringing something special to the dialogue. Yeah. Okay, so a couple more things. Strong dialogue and writing. Editing, of course, is critical. There's a scene at the end of Casablanca where Rick, it's a shootout at the end. So Rick is standing there with the French policeman, and I think it was the Russian general, the German general. And there was a scene, they shot that scene, and the editor was going through it and said, we're missing a shot. I need Rick looking at the French police officer, or else I can't edit this correctly. And they went back and they shot that one little eye look because it sells the scene. Those two needed to have that look because after that look, they walk off into the sunset together. If they don't have that look, the beat's missing and you don't feel it. So. And
what can kill it with editing is if you linger. This happened in the episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Star Wars a lot, right? And then they did the Phantom edit. Did you guys hear about it? I didn't see that. Did you see it? Was it good?
So let me explain what it is.
So much better.
I
think I'm going to watch it with Dylan
They took
these days,
episodes 1, 2, and 3 and made them one movie.
One movie, right? And so this is a brilliant example of,
exactly.
How editing can just kill a scene. I watched another film. I can't remember the name of it. You just linger a little too long, like someone says something and then the camera lingers on them a little, like 5 seconds or 3 seconds too long, and it's like, the moment dies. It just
go watch any level 1 improv class.
Yeah.
And it's just like people do a thing on stage, and then there's just like and then it just, you're like, if you had chopped it off 30 seconds earlier.
That timing is so meaningful.
I know you know this one, Brian, but it's a funny editing thing to bring meaning to something. You can yell any word, and if you edit off the last, like, 1/8 of that word, it makes it funny. Yeah. If somebody's like, huh! and the edit cuts, it's funny. I don't know why, but it has I do it. When I'm editing Alpha Quadrant 6 for fun, I screw around sometimes and see what would happen if I stop it right there. And it's always funny. I laugh in my office every time I do it. the character needs a transformation and a journey. Like Luke Skywalker's journey defines him, and it's important. And in most movies, hopefully there is some type of growth transformation, you know, in a beginning, middle, and end of what their journey is. And then, you know, charisma, of course. If the character is charismatic and there's something about them that we like, then, you know, it just makes us sink in more. So now that we've rushed through that, and I am on a schedule because we have a lot to cover, I am going to ask Courtney to start us off with one of her compelling characters. Now, Court, you picked. I'm going to pick off.
No, I'm going to talk about Edward Norton.
All right, you want to go right to Edward Norton. So here's Edward Norton. Norton?
Not that one?
This is American History X.
Yeah.
This is Edward Norton, and what's the character's name?
Derek, what's his last name?
Frankenheimer. They're good enough.
Derek.
Yeah.
Derek is his name. Something with a B. Yeah, I mean, I think this character is complicated, and that was one of the things I liked most about him. He's so complex. And talk about a character who goes through a journey, right? So he starts off this sort of all-American boy, really smart. He's just in a typical, I think, LA town or something like that. And he goes through this incredible journey of becoming a white supremacist, leader of a white supremacist group, goes to jail, is physically assaulted in jail, in prison, and then after that, after this humiliation, and basically, like, I don't know if it's dissonance or whatever that happens to him, he basically starts to turn his life around, and then this character resurfaces and comes back, this principal he had when he was younger comes and sees him in prison and basically pulls him sort of out of the darkness and starts, you know, turning him around and making him rethink some of his choices. And I think the line that brings him out of the clouds is something like, what have you done? What have you done so far that has made your life better, or something like that. So then all of a sudden he starts thinking about that. So he returns home. He gets released from prison, and then his goal from that point forward is basically to prevent or protect his family and brother from the path he set them on with this white supremacist group. So totally awesome journey for this character, obviously flawed, but you see these, you know, talk about a character you get some empathy for. You see how the seeds to the start. The narrator is his younger brother throughout the film, and he says in the movie, he says, at some point you would think, most people would think that this all started when my father was murdered by a couple of gang members, but actually it started a lot earlier. And then they go to this scene, this flashback to a scene with them at the dinner table, and Derek is this young kid, and he's got this baseball hat on, and he's talking about his English assignment, and he basically is talking about his new professor, or his new teacher, is having them read this African American book, and the dad's like, what is it, Black History Month? And in the most subtle way possible, he basically, puts the kibosh on all the excitement this teacher was generating for this kid by, kind of poisoning his mind with some racist, thinking, like, about affirmative black shin. He says stuff like that. So it's really amazing. And then as this course of this dinner scene goes on, I had that scene. You want to play it?
We're technologically challenged here.
Anyway, so that's it. That's the point in this story where this character, who might have been set on a completely different trajectory with the right kind of support, was completely turned off compass and was inspired by someone in his life who obviously he looked up to. And he's like, yeah, by the end of it, I could see how you would, I could see how it's just, maybe not doesn't make, and then the dad cuts in and goes, it's bullshit. And then that's it. That's like, from that point on, and then his father gets murdered by a black guy, a black kid, and then like it goes downhill from there. What's fascinating about it is, as this movie ties together at the end with this character, he has a confrontation with the bigger leader of this white supremacist group, and he's basically threatening him and saying, stay away from my brother, stay away from my family, and he tells them, he winds up tying it back in, and he says, everything you've ever said to me, I'm tired of your bullshit, I'm tired of all the bullshit out there, and he just puts the kibosh on it. So this character takes this incredible journey and change, and throughout it all, we're like, we're rooting for him in some weird way. Even when he was like a bad guy, you're rooting for him. Even when you can kind of see the complexity, the flawed thinking, and see where it's coming from. So
he definitely starts out as a villain.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't start out as a villain.
I mean, you know,
he starts out as a good kid, and he.
But in the movie, we start in the middle. We start
right,
the movie starts out.
Yeah.
We see the backstory, but then he turns into kind of something else. It's hard to even.
He's this tragic hero at the end of it, you know, who was brainwashed and yo-yoed back and forth. It's pretty amazing.
So he's got flaws. He's got empathy. There's massive high stakes.
We have empathy for him, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
no, but he is empathetic. I mean, he flips the script at the end.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. It's debatable, but we don't have time.
He has the relationships are there.
The debate about the character's motivations is actually
so good.
It makes it interesting.
Yeah, his relationships are actually very important to the development of his character. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Court. I mean, look at those biceps. That's you know, it's funny, but it is amazing what Ed Norton did for that movie. I mean, look at him. He's the biggest. He's jacked. When he curbed that dude, that was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in film. Because it felt, I mean, you felt it happen. You could see teeth scraping on concrete. I mean, that was just bad stuff, man. All right, Court, thanks. I love that character. All right, Brian. Brian, you had quite a few fun characters on here. Now, which one would you like to talk about first?
Let's do
Edna.
Edna.
I'm so weird.
I maintain that Edna Mode is the only true hero in the Incredibles universe. So obviously less, you know, you don't spend the whole movie with her, but she is, for my money, the most memorable things about The Incredibles is, let's just talk about the first one right now. I saw 75% of the second one because I went with my 4-year-old and she got scared. So I don't actually know what happened with a bunch of that. But for the Incredibles movie, there are two real standout things for me. One is the score by Michael Giacchino, which is amazing. And the other is this character right here, Edna Mode. She is, so you guys have all seen The Incredibles pretty much? Right.
Yeah.
She is, everything about her is fantastic. First of all, super distinct voice characterization by Brad Bird. She has some kind of like Eastern European accent sort of thing. She's a stone cold genius. Knows what she's doing at her job, doesn't have any superpowers, but is just hyper competent. Is also very human, like she's testy, she's kind of annoying,
she has that thing that those kind. I'm just redecorating my kitchen, and the guy that I'm doing my kitchen is Edna Mode, kitchen facade, meaning that it's like, should we do this? No, you don't want to do that. You know, that's bad. Like, that's a terrible idea. Like, completely honest, no capes. You know, like, just no, that's stupid. You don't want to do that.
Would that be part of competency porn?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, do you guys know what competency porn is?
It's opinionated competency porn.
Yeah, I like that, though. I mean,
that's it's compelling.
like when I buy a TV, wouldn't you love to buy a TV from someone like her?
Yeah, of course.
Right? You go in, no, this is the one you want. Man, when people tell me that's what I want, I'm like, that's what I want. It just works.
Yeah.
You all know my secret now.
That's private, Court. Don't get it. Jesus Christ.
I think also, I mean, she's just amazing character design. She has this, like, these iris apfel glasses, right? She's got this, you know, cool haircut. She wears, she seems like a fashionista, which she basically is, right? It's, I mean, the one thing I will say that I don't think she really covers of the character of
the list.
The list. She doesn't really have too much of a journey in the movie. She's almost
she's there already. She's already there.
She's already there. And we pop into her life for 10 minutes and then.
But she's a perfect example of the type of character that will be brought up today. I thought we might as well just connect it now. I wasn't going to talk about James Bond, but I want to connect James Bond to her real quick because James Bond is a character that we don't know much about, right? You know, there's a huge number of movies. I'm sure there's other things we find out. But if you just take one of the old, like, Sean Connery classic James Bond movies, you don't find out anything about his personal life. You don't know anything about, we know what he likes to drink, and we know what gun he uses. He likes to wear nice clothes. But he's competency porn. He's our guy. We want him to win. And it's the same thing with Edna, right? Like, we just love watching her do her thing. And, like, that's James Bond. And that's so many other characters that we see in movies. And they kind of shirk everything that we're doing here. And I think part of it really is that they're like you were saying, like, she's the hero. She is a hero when we're with her. She is more powerful than the other heroes in the movie.
She doesn't do what she does well. They die.
Right.
Right. Just blatantly.
But But a character like James Bond, you can watch an hour and a half of that, and we love it. We eat it up.
Yeah.
You know, why is the character so successful? We don't know shit about James Bond, and he doesn't care. Who's he make connections with? He's having sex with women in those movies. Like that's his connection. He doesn't like have friends.
Yeah.
It's weird, right? You have these.
Yeah, and he was briefly married once, and then
Yeah.
you never hear about his wife ever again, except after she dies and On Her Majesty's Secret War.
So I think Edna is part of
Yeah.
the group of characters that flies in the face of what we're talking about. There's something. Maybe it's just the raw charisma. Maybe it's just.
I think that's a big part of it.
I think it's a huge thing that overrides a lot of the other things that we need when we watch other characters. We need a lot of other stuff to care. But you're right. When I watched her, it was like 3 seconds. I'm like, oh my
You're
god.
in.
I'm totally bought in. I love it.
I think she's interesting too. At least in The Incredibles, there are 2 major characters that don't have superpowers: her and Syndrome, the bad guy, and they really stand in opposition to each other. Like Syndrome, he's kind of he's a very distinct characterization. It's Jason Lee, but he doesn't really he's not that interesting, and whatever. He's a bad guy, but she is the other non-superpowered person, but is competent in a way that Syndrome is not. So I don't know if they're intended to be these antipodal figures, but they function that way very much.
That's cool. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, didn't Bird, he wasn't supposed to do her voice. Didn't he just do it? He was reading the lines, and everyone loved it so much. Like, you are
Yeah.
her, and nobody else can be her. And they stuck
That's
with
great.
that.
I love
She
that.
is that character.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He probably wrote her too. I mean, that movie's all his.
Yeah, I love it when that happens sometimes in animated films, right? Like they have some stand-in, like an animator or whatever, who does the voice. I think did you ever see that movie Bolt? It was a John Travolta animated movie. The dog is some, or was it? No, the hamster in that movie. It was some animator who just had this adorable voice as the scratch track, and they were just like, yeah, you rule.
That's it. Han Solo, man.
Yeah.
He was reading scripts as a favor.
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford got it because he just, All right, Steve, what do you got?
I want to start with HAL 9000.
All right.
Partly because it deconstructs some of what we're talking about, what makes a great character. So what's interesting from a psychoneurological point of view as well is how well we can connect with and empathize with a character that just has parts of human. So there's some characters who are not full human. And you think, well, what are the things that characters do that affect how we feel and think about them? They talk, right? They communicate verbally. They communicate non-verbally with how they move, facial expressions, and what they do. And Hal is a good example because he doesn't have a lot. He has no body, no face. He doesn't really do much in the movie. He does a couple of things. Most of what he's doing is just talking to the humans on the ship. That's most of our interaction with him is just his voice. He's really just a disembodied voice. And yet he's the most powerful character in that movie in 2001. Certainly the most memorable character in that movie, the one that gets made fun of in commercials and stuff, right? No one ever duplicates Poole. What's Poole's character? He actually was created not to have much of a character. That was kind of the point there, but Hal, in a weird way, was supposed to be the most human character in the movie. And he's a computer algorithm, So I think it's interesting how it sort of strips down the elements of what communicates a great character to us. Also, Hal is great because there's a bit of mystery of we don't know what his want is. We don't know what motivates him, and it's a mystery.
It's a mystery to me because I've never seen the movie.
Okay. Steve,
I'll tell you, we don't know it. And that's
Steve, I thought that Hal, forgive me if I'm screwing.
You're going to tell me what gets revealed in 2010,
Yes.
which was an abomination,
Yeah.
because it explained what should never have been explained.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The
Okay.
whole
It
point-
wasn't behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Okay.
the whole point was that it was just a flat mystery behind why he was doing what he was doing. Then they tried to explain it in 2010, and it was lame. So some things you should not explain. The mystery is more interesting, more compelling. And I think that was compelling about this character. And then, when thinking about Hal, I was thinking, well, what other characters are there that are less?
We don't know his want, though. I'm sure the actor
Well, there was.
that chose one.
Yeah,
I'm saying even back in 2001,
Yeah,
I
maybe.
would argue he has to.
Yeah.
If he's an
But
actor
to
with
the
the song,
audience-
he chose something. But
Whoa,
doesn't mean
so
you would know.
are you guys saying that Kubrick had an answer?
I'm
to
sure he
Oh,
did.
absolutely.
I'm sure 100%.
Right, because he was that
did.
complete. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no doubt in my mind.
Now, and
that
before you get to this next piece, I just want to bring something in
Yeah.
because you're going to go off. I know where you're going right
Yeah.
now. when they're shutting him down and he
Yes.
sings Daisy,
Yes.
that he goes from the villain to
A child.
we feel for him deeply at that point. Like
Right.
that's my favorite part of the movie because it's enduring. It's endearing. Like what's
iconic.
talk to me about that? Why did that work?
Well, but it's a way of getting his backstory. Think about it. It's a really interesting way of getting his backstory because he's regressing to his earlier states and he's repeating conversations he had with his programmers, and he's reverting to a child, and we see it happen. And as he's being killed, basically.
See, I think Kubrick did that because to make him childlike.
Yeah.
Because he becomes the villain. We fear him. Like he's killing the astronauts.
One of the themes of the movie is the transformation of different stages of life, and so we see it in reverse with Hal. Just as we see Poole become the Star Child, he goes through later stages of his life. So it does all tie together. But then
is it true that the Star Child becomes David Bowie? Yes or no?
No. So think about other characters from other movies that are less than human and don't have all the elements that we think about. So one I think great example of fantastic character was Wally. Wally no dialogue. There's or almost no dialogue. He says Wally, right? But there's almost no dialogue.
And he oozes stuff.
Yeah, he has partial body language, right? He's not a person. It's all this little, but it tells you how little we need to read body language even into machines. And it's just all what he does. So to hear 95% of what he communicates to us is what he does. No facial expression, very little facial expressions, very little body chemistry, but no dialogue, and it's just what he does. And he's a completely thoroughly enjoyable, compelling character, right? And we were talking about it in the car. My daughter brought up, I said, what's your favorite character? Quick. And she's like, R2-D2. I'm like, well, there's another one. Think about R2-D2 just has beeps and whistles. He has almost no body language, no facial expression, no dialogue, very little body language and beeps and whistles, and we love him, because we know what his want is, we know what his motivation is. He's brave, he's loyal, he will do anything for the cause, fearlessly, and he's adorable.
Yeah.
And he's beeps and clicks. But it's fascinating to me what little we need to hit our buttons.
We also feel something for him based on we mirror the relationship Luke fosters with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Luke bonds with him, and we feel that as well.
And then we're like, we're in.
Yeah, and C-3PO and him have a great relationship, and C-3PO translates a lot for us of what R2-D2 was saying by
we can infer,
Jarvis is another one.
Yeah, Jarvis.
Jarvis is another, and he's another disembodied voice.
Yeah.
There until he becomes the real Paul Bettany.
Right. Wheatley from Portal 2, if anyone plays best character in all video games, Wheatley from Portal 2. And it's just a voice and a robot with sort of some little,
Gladys from Portal.
Gladys is another fantastic character, Wheatley.
But it's a really cool thing. When you first brought it up that you wanted to talk about Hal, I was like, nah. I mean,
I was so excited.
Yeah, I didn't like it because I just.
Well, the last thing I have to say is that psychologists have studied how little we need to feel emotions.
Yeah.
We could feel emotions about a triangle.
Yeah.
Seriously. If it moves if it moves in a certain way, we can invent a story and emotions and feelings.
Wants to hit the circle.
Yes, exactly. The square is a bad guy and the circle's protecting the triangle from the square. It's like we could totally do that. Totally do that.
Yeah, the first time I think most of us experienced this was the Pixar lamp.
Yes,
remember that?
The lamp.
That was the first time we felt like, what? Like, how did that thing, the light moves and it's communicating to us. Like, the animation was brilliant. But anyway.
But the history of movies, I mean, Wall-E is Charlie Chaplin, right? So in the silent movies, that's all they had. That's all they had, no dialogue.
But I totally get it, because this is a class of characters. We have characters that are dehumanized in some manner or form, but there's something.
He's a very human character.
Yeah. Yep. And the writers and the actors and everything can pull it off, where the intent is delivered to us.
Kubrick.
Should they?
Yes, Wilson. Yeah. But that was all through Tom Hanks, though. What we felt was Tom Hanks feeling for that.
That's a good example of that mirrored relationship.
Did you see the retransfer that they just put out?
No.
It's the 50th anniversary. They took the original of 2001. They took the original print and just retransferred it, and it's playing. It's all been playing in LA. For
I gotta see it.
It's the best.
We'll go
They're
see
doing
it.
it in 70 millimeter. It's seeing it
double
again.
plus big.
We have to make more watch. I know. Well, we said I
you have to
remember
clip your eyes
telling
open
Steve
and watch
I didn't see this. He was like, "You didn't see 2001." This is like 12 years ago. And then we just went on about our lives.
I'm part of a group of people that I'm like, 2001, like I get it. I'm not in love with the movie. It's,
Well,
you know,
it's
there are moments, I mean, there's long stretches of just utter
All right.
fucking boredom in that movie,
last
Steve.
scene,
Seriously.
that last scene could be cut down.
The last
Could be
scene, the
trimmed a
first
little.
goddamn scene with the monkeys. Like,
Brilliant.
trim that
I
shit
agree.
down. It takes too long.
No, it does
Too
not.
long.
No,
Bill
you were
Long.
I haven't seen the movie, but I have seen enough analysis in classes and stuff of people talking about the obelisk scene when they
Yeah.
first see
Every moment is gold.
Yeah.
That, to me, that movie is like, forget it, I can't get into it. Whatever.
It's also one of those things that you really have to see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
Like it's way when you're not engrossed in the detail of what's going on there, just like on a TV. It's way worse when you're watching on small screen.
But, yeah, all right,
Hit
so
it.
it's my turn. My wife, this is, I was just telling Courtney that I would not have grown to love this movie for it to become my favorite movie if it weren't for my wife. I just have, there's certain types of movies that I don't gravitate to. Even though I love character development, I mean, I'm totally into this stuff, but Courtney turns me on to Elizabeth Bennet in Pride and Prejudice. You know, this version happens to be my favorite with Keira Knightley. If you haven't read the book or seen the movie,
BBC, right?
I know it's funny. Like, so you're either like the first movie or second movie, but
The
you know,
first is not a movie; it's a miniseries.
the miniseries is great too. But I just adore this movie for how well it was
movie's
crafted.
beautiful.
It's
It is
beautifully
beautiful.
shot.
It's
There's so many things.
bite-sized, Pride and Prejudice.
Right? It's so beautiful. The music
is
is fantastic. The score is just ridiculously good. I picked her first because I felt like our list was underrepresented by women because so many movies are about men, and I really wanted to pick, but it happens to be my favorite movie, so it was an easy pick for me.
Jay, is that better than Pride and Prejudice and Zombies?
Yes, Bob, seriously. There's a lot of things about this character that I love. Right out of the gate, she's a standout in her society. You know, she's in a society where women are kind of like second-class citizens. I mean, the men have all the power. Women's lives are revolving around, well, in this class of women, right? So we're in like families that have land and an income and all that.
In Regency England.
Regency England, definitely. Women, their lives revolved around marrying a man, and it wasn't about them. It was always about the man. She, you know, I would describe her as a philosopher. She has a very philosophic attitude towards things. She lives her life. She wants to fall in love. She doesn't want to marry for money. She wants to, you know, it's a noble thing that she wants out of her life. She's not going to waste her life being married to someone. And we see examples of people getting married out of desperation in the movie. Like her best friend marries the guy that was going to inherit her family's estate. That horrible, the religious guy, the pastor dude. Oh my God, the actor did such a brilliant job of making you despise this, detest this guy. And he was hitting on her. And when he's hitting on her, we're offended because we're representing her in a sense. And you know, that's when I realized my emotional connection to this character was very strong, because he's hitting on her like he's hitting on me. I'm like, no. We get to know her character, I think, very quickly. One of the first things we see her doing is she's walking and reading a book. Again, this is an example of, you know, do girls read books back then? You know, is it okay? Like she's filling her head full of knowledge, and I love that scene, just that her walking. The title of this film, Pride and Prejudice, to me speaks volumes about the importance of her journey, right? She suffers from pride and prejudice. Mr. Darcy suffers from pride and prejudice. And because of her pride and her prejudice, she has prejudice against rich people, and he has prejudice against low-class or low-brow people. And the two of them eventually find each other, and they both go on a great journey. Now, we're following her on her journey, and her journey is she realizes, hey, I'm a great judge of character. She knows it. She's noticing things. Courtney gave me this idea that she notices things and little nuances of what people say and do better than anybody else. That's like her superpower in the movie. She's great at it. But she completely misreads Darcy. Darcy is a great guy with a shitty veneer. He's actually a wonderful person who is trying to do, he's really bad to the lower class. He's really snobby and all that, but his generosity is amazing that we find out at the end of the movie. And when she finds it out, when she finds out who Darcy really is, her defining moment is when Darcy's aunt, who wanted him to marry her daughter, comes to her and basically lights her up. who the hell are you to think that you're valuable enough to marry Darcy? And she's so humble in that moment, saying, if he, I don't remember the dialogue word for word, but she basically says, if he loved me, if I was able to have a man like him love me, if only that were my life. She really, in that moment, realizes that she loves him and how important love is, and that's the most important thing in life.
Yeah, you didn't find this all slow and boring?
No, not at all, by the way. Not at all. I mean, watching a spaceship turn for 3 minutes, Steve, and this other spaceship is coming in, I could be having sex while that's happening.
That was sex.
Exactly.
Was
I
sex.
can do it in real life.
All right.
So her humility is one of the things that I'm really attracted to her, because she goes through this phase in the last 15 minutes of the film where she has to completely humble herself to what the missteps that she took, the decisions that she made that were wrong. And at the end, of course, we get what we want. We want the two of them to come together. And what we find is at the end, he had the same thing going on. We don't see any of it, but he had the same exact thing going on, which I love. And I would love someone to make a film about his experience throughout the whole thing.
Well, there's books about it, because Jane Austen's in the public domain, so there's lots of books from Mr. Darcy's perspective.
Oh, I got to read that. That would be awesome.
What's really cool about what you said about Darcy and his perspective and his outlook is he is actually or the way she judged him, or her prejudice of him in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is just suffering from social anxiety.
Yeah, he's actually he's got a condition, he doesn't know how to communicate well. Now, this movie is riddled with the little nuances. If you care to watch the movie again, you'll notice little things if you pay attention. Like when Darcy holds her hand and she gets in the car, the carriage, very early in the movie, and he's walking away, and the director literally shows his hand go like that, because he touched her for the first time, and it gave him he had that shock, oh my God, I touched her. I love that scene because his face is, she's lowbrow, I don't like her, everything smells bad, he's got that thing, but his hand is revealing everything that he feels. Now, think about that, how cool is the writer and the director and the actor to pull that off, where his hand, oh, holy shit, he loves her. I
am determined to make you a lover of the BBC miniseries, because Colin Firth,
yeah, he's
right?
awesome. Yeah, he's awesome.
He makes that happen.
So I can keep going, but I would say I recommend, guys, watch this movie with a new way of looking at it. We are going to quickly go back to Courtney. We're okay on time, right? Yeah, let's go back.
Are we doing another good one, or thumbs
Well,
up?
why don't we have fun and let the audience decide? Would you guys like us to discuss more successful characters, or do you want us to get into some unsuccessful characters? Raise your hand if you want unsuccessful characters. Okay, it looks like there's more people there. All right, let's just click over.
You did not consider the alternative. Raise your hand if you want successful.
Well, I could quickly do the math, but okay, raise your hand if you want successful. Yeah, there's
Vote.
Two people.
Yeah. Courtney, will you?
I was going to talk about
Yes.
Anakin.
Yeah, let's go to everybody's favorite.
God,
You didn't like Princess Skywalker?
I need a drink if I'm going to do this. Okay,
We know what he wants. He wants a world free of sand.
and
something else.
He desperately wants, an acting coach. That's what he really wants.
And he wants his mommy.
It's amazing how
I don't know. I mean, can you walk into a better, you can't be more set up for a character than Darth Vader. You walk in and that's your background or your future, and really. And you know that's where you're going, and this is what we end up with, And I was so disappointed. I don't even know where to begin. So this is going to.
That's why I love you, Court.
I don't know where to start.
Oh,
it's
God.
pick a moment. Just start the movie and let's just close our eyes and stop it, because that's a bad moment. Look, he had. If you go down that list we went through before, I don't think he did any of that homework. I don't think that anyone was working together. There's no cohesiveness in this movie. There's no unity. I think Lucas might have had an idea of what was going on. He had his own idea. The other actors, everybody's doing their own thing and coming together and let's roll, And he was. I think here's my biggest problem with this particular character and this actor doing it is I think he suffered from something that actors do, which is called being your own audience. And I think he's doing. I think 90% of the time I'm up there watching him, or I'm watching him up there, I'm thinking to myself, he's not in the moment. He's not believing in the. When I was was writing about believing in the moment, living truthfully within that imaginary world, if you can do that, if you can make that happen, you're pretty much, anyone's going to believe that you're really buying into it, you're really feeling this character. And I don't think he was doing that, because I don't think he really knew what he was fighting for. I don't think that, I think he was 90% of the time just coming up with trying to put forth these certain emotions. That's one. Another thing is just the writing in general. Obviously the dialogue and script was bad, but the character arc of Anakin was really poor. You start off with this happy-go-lucky kid.
Yeah.
I didn't see Darth Vader being that kid. I mean,
I think that was the point. It was like, oh, how ironic! A cute little kid is going to be Darth Vader, but they hit you over the head with that so much. It was
and the acting, Jake Lloyd was also terrible.
Yeah.
That, like,
right? I mean, so
there was some nuance that could have been added
Yes.
there to make that.
Could have killed a frog or something. I mean, that's. I mean, a little bit of foreshadowing would have been nice.
But there was no root. There was no real journey. It was like, okay, we're going to make the kid really happy and cute and funny, and then when he turns evil, it's just going to mean so much. Well, not really. Not unless you actually set the tone and you put this character on a real journey that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's got to be one step after the other. You can't have something here and then go later on.
No,
we're
he
gonna have it
went
over
straight
here.
from whiny teenager to Darth Vader.
He fell off a
Yeah,
cliff.
and that didn't even make sense.
It didn't.
Because,
It didn't.
because he says, I can't live without you, right? It's all about Padme. I can't live without you. But then she dies, and he goes on to be Darth Vader. Why don't you just kill it yourself? You said it. You said you were going to. So why didn't we get any purpose or moment in the script? He should have had something. Fine. I said I couldn't live without her. So really, he should have just been 86ing himself because he didn't think he had kids. I mean, that would have been a reason for him to survive. He didn't say, I'm going to get back at all those Jedi. We didn't really see him say, those guys, it's their fault. They're the reason she's dead.
We had no idea
now.
what he was doing. What he was
We
doing.
didn't know. He didn't know. We didn't know. Nobody knew.
But
And
even
that's why.
the actors had no chemistry. That was another thing. This
Oh my God.
actor in this script did nothing to make us feel like he had relationships with anyone. So when he's professing his love,
On that
we don't
garden,
care. We don't
field
care.
Outside, you're just like.
I mean, there was like one person acting whenever he was in the scene, and it wasn't him. It was always the other person. So without the relationship.
The worst scene
worst
was
scene.
was when he kills all the sand people,
Yeah.
and then he's telling Padme, "I killed them all." I'm like, that was the moment. That was the moment when you become Darth Vader.
Yeah,
really, in your
before he's
head.
in the costume, he's Darth Vader. Yeah.
And that's what we get. It was pathetic.
We could have heard something like some rationalization, some angry
Yes,
rationalization.
yeah,
for
some
what-
darkness.
Yeah, so because we had it later, he had an objective. He's like, look, he's like, this
They
is the
deserved it,
power.
something.
They
Give me
deserve
something.
something, anything. We had nothing. So that's that.
We got him involved. We're gonna
All right, sorry about that. That was more for us than for you. Brian, who would you like to talk about? A failed character.
Who did I pick?
You had Ted Mosby and Guru
that's a good
Pika.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about either of those?
What was the second one?
Guru Pika?
Okay, yeah, let's talk about Guru Pitka from The Love Guru. Has anyone seen the Mike Meyer film, The Love Guru? Notorious flop.
Yeah, it was a
Notorious
total
flop.
flop.
Is basically his follow-up to Austin Powers. It was his next big character, and this movie is. So I watched it recently, which is why I was thinking about this, because I'd never seen it before. It's one of those movies that people say is so bad that you don't think it can actually be that bad. But it is actually that bad. And the other thing I didn't realize that it was about is hockey. So it turns out that movie
what?
is mostly about hockey.
Oh, hockey?
Yeah, and like basically there's some player, I think on the Maple Leafs or something, who has some disastrous breakup and he needs the love guru to get him in there. But it's Mike Myers doing what can only be construed as borderline racist Indian
Caricature,
accent
yeah.
and
Yeah,
carry
stereotype.
caricature. It's really remarkable to me to see a comedian that talented.
What was the
just
character?
like-
What was the?
So he's
never saw it. So what is he?
so
talking about?
he's this very smiley, you can't pull up a picture of him, can you?
I can try. We haven't.
But that's part of the problem is you just have no idea. He's like a joke machine, but without the personality that, for example, a successful character like Austin Powers has. Right? Austin Powers, you kind of get a sense of who he is and what he wants.
The thing about Mike Myers, though, I always got the impression that he was really just trying to make himself laugh.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
His humor is very self-indulgent, and it's okay when we also think it's funny.
Yeah.
But we didn't think this was funny, and so it was purely for his own entertainment.
Yes.
And nobody else was entertained.
Yeah, and it's a lot of like, you can tell he's trying for that kind of absurd humor, but it's
hard.
Like,
That's hard to do.
It's really hard to do, and it's just
Yeah,
amazing
you're
that they
right.
spent movie, probably a $50 million movie or something like that, if not more, and it just totally tanks.
So I have an idea about why certain movies like this fail. It's the too big to fail thing where, oh, you know what you're doing, Mike. You can do whatever you want, right? That's why George Lucas failed in movies 1, 2, and 3 because he was a one-man show at that point. Nobody was
Or
keeping
Peter
him.
Jackson in The Hobbit.
Exactly. Like you need other people to keep you in check.
I think also with a lot of these too big to fail things, I mean, sometimes the difference between success and failure with characters like this is like this small.
Yeah.
So there's a version where this movie is just a laugh riot and it's amazing and everyone loves the character. I think partly also once people started dumping on it, then it became a collective thing, like Ishtar, where it's like, oh, well, that's really bad, and now everyone thinks it's bad. This is legitimately terrible. They also got Ben Kingsley in it to do scenes entirely where his eyes are crossed. Ben Kingsley's character, who's Guru Pitka's guru, I believe his name is Guru Chuggin Mapuda, which is an example of a joke that just is not funny. How did they get Ben Kingsley for that?
Threw a boatload of money at him?
Yeah, it's terrible.
A lot of money and a lot of trust.
Yeah.
Sure,
Ted
Mike,
Mosby
I
is
like
easy.
you.
He's just
I'll do
boring.
that.
Yeah.
He is boring. He is a boring
So
character.
boring.
Steve, you hate The Flash.
Ted Mosby.
Well, I was going to talk about the Flash from Justice League
He is boring, Bob.
because he's flat. But you brought up The Last Airbender, so let me talk about that.
You want to talk about The Last Airbender?
Yeah, because that's every character in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, you could just say it in general, yeah.
But, so I don't know, anyone here watch the cartoon Avatar?
It's amazing.
It's awesome. It's fantastic. Every character in that is really fantastic. You want to talk about successful characters, like Zuko.
Zuko
Is one of the best characters in any fiction that I've ever seen because he has the best arc. It's amazing, a really well written, and again, it's a cartoon, but it doesn't matter because you feel every character. And so we were so excited for the live action. It was Shyamalan and Ding Dong, so we were like, maybe he'll make a good movie this time. It's like a coin flip with him, but and it was so disappointing. It's really. It's almost like a lesson in how, again, you start with characters, great backstory, great personality, great motivation. They had every element there, so why did it fail? It's a really interesting question. I think a big part of it was casting, which we didn't really talk about on the list.
It's a big part of it.
It's a big part of it, and the worst casting in that movie was General Zhao, because General Zhao was supposed to be a big
This
badass.
This guy might have been in it.
No. General Zhao he was the villain badass of the movie, and they cast a comedian, the guy from the comedy show, whatever, the Daily Show. The guy from I forget his name.
Stewart?
Stewart, but the other guy, the Indian guy from the Daily Show.
Oh, remarkable.
Yes, They cast him as the badass General Zhao, who was supposed to drive the conflict in the movie. And it was totally unbelievable. I talk about not feeling in place or in time. Like that guy does not belong there. None of the characters really did. They didn't belong. They didn't sell what was good about those characters, and the relationships fell flat, and the chemistry fell flat. So, but I think it was mostly casting.
Shyamalan's interesting, I think, because he tries for big stuff, and sometimes it really works. Like Sixth Sense really
Brilliant
works.
movie. 600 is a free.
It's
I
amazing.
just rewatched it with my daughter. Brilliant movie. When you know the ending and you go back and rewatch it, you realize, holy
But
shit!
he had
it was a good movie.
A very metered decline into it. I don't want to say insanity, but he went from brilliant to horrible.
He
And
had two great movies and the rest were shit.
no, I mean, Signals wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was Signs. Yeah, but Unbreakable was great.
That was the other good
But
one.
here's the thing, I think he's a director who's not afraid to take
Which
some
one?
risks.
Right.
You know what
I
I
didn't
mean?
see that
I
one.
like
Split
that.
is
He'll
great.
take some
Okay, so
chances.
3. I didn't.
He will.
Yeah, I know.
And there's a third part coming up.
Yeah. Split is awesome.
Oh, you're right. Was that him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He has 3
Then
good
there's
movies.
the next one that's gonna follow up on that book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Glass, right.
Yeah.
All right. I was going to
So
talk
that's the
about
Unbreakable
Prometheus, but Steve kind of covered it. We don't need to rehash the whole Prometheus fiasco, but again, horrible writing, no connection to the characters. Their relationships sucked.
They're all idiots.
They're all idiots.
Incompetency
porn.
Incompetency porn, that's what it was. The worst thing is the scientist who wants to pet the cobra. And the cobra. Oh my God.
But I decided to not talk about it.
So I'm just saying, I have a friend who worked on this.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yes.
Did you punch him?
Why are you
What happened?
Well,
Still friends with him?
let's just
Ryan,
say-
do you have his phone number? I'll call him
I
right
actually
now.
did. Apparently, what he said was that a lot of it was Ridley Scott just at the last minute being like, "Hey, let's do this other thing."
Terrible
So
idea.
I bet the original script
was strong, yeah. It was probably
was
pretty
awesome,
Yeah.
and a lot of it was just kind of directorial whim.
strong.
Yeah, that's bad because that means your writing wasn't planned and your actors are probably confused, don't know what's going
But
on.
if you're making changes at the last minute,
Yeah.
He's king.
But I wanted to
Who
pick.
they hired, he's king on this
I
one.
wanted to pick something that I think there'll be some division on. I want to talk about the character Churchill in what was the name of the movie? Churchill. It was Churchill. I confuse it with Dunkirk for some reason. It's because of your mom.
Oh, no, Dunkirk and Church, they both
Yeah.
came out.
Okay, so the movie Churchill, the character. Now listen.
is this the Gary Oldman?
Yes, Gary Oldman did a wonderful job playing the character. He's great, but I think the character failed
Darkest
because of the
hour.
writing. I think he was the best part of the movie, but I didn't get
He was
enough.
the movie. He was the only
Exactly, but I mean, I didn't find.
Almost as if you were the title character.
Yeah.
I did not find a connection with the character. I didn't really feel that connected to the character. I didn't feel like he had any relationships. I don't feel like the character changed at all. And they didn't give me enough of stuff that, wait, let me finish for Christ's sake. She's my wife, by the way. It happens at home. They didn't give Gary Oldman as the actor enough stuff happening to, like they kind of stopped the movie right when it was getting interesting. It ends. Like, why the hell would they do that? It just,
No, because the movie was about his decision process leading up to the Dunkirk film, which was already happening in another theater.
but then it is a true failure of the writing because it wasn't a failure of the acting at all. The writing was bad then because the character didn't land.
Does that fall under, this is what we discussed before, does that fall under the category of a bad character? Because I would say that this is a very successful character in an otherwise bad movie, in a really boring movie.
Yeah, and this is why I wanted to bring it up because we
Wonderful
disagree on
character in a
this.
boring movie.
How do you define it, right? Is it because I don't like the movie, but I do like the actor and the character. But I can go through our list and I can tell you right now, they don't hit it. They really don't. Sure, the character has clear, like I feel like there's clear goals there.
Did you see Churchill?
No,
guys?
Jocelyn did.
Oh, you guys didn't see
She
it?
loved it.
Well,
It was great.
did anybody see it?
He was amazing.
All right, so I'll tell you what, all three of us will talk after the workshop. But it is an interesting thing when you think about like this predicament that we're in. The acting was fantastic. The actor did a great job with what he was given, but the movie sucked. So therefore, I don't like the character.
I do agree that the dialogue, the writing could have been a little stronger.
And it was
but
boring.
But I think the film was boring. I think that we had an amazing character and acting performance in an otherwise horribly boring movie.
Yep.
That's what's going on there.
All right, so
Do you want to throw it out to the audience? See if they have any characters they want to recommend?
That's interesting. Does anybody have a good or a bad character? Doesn't matter. Right here.
Count Olaf.
Say again.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Olaf rules.
yeah.
Which for TV or movie?
The TV series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah, is it good or a bad
He's
character?
Very good.
Yeah, he's excellent.
He's an evil
Yeah.
character. You want to hate him.
Yes.
You do hate him, but he steals every scene he's in.
Absolutely.
I thought Jim Carrey was great in the movie too. With that.
Yeah, he
character.
was.
I really liked him.
John,
I
what do
think
you
it's
got?
getting a little redundant, but yeah.
3 billboards outside Ebbing,
Ah,
Missouri.
yes, that's a great
For
film.
Those 3 characters, I think it's just fucking amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
amazing movie.
Amazing writing, amazing acting, amazing characters.
Yep.
Sam Rockwell. I mean,
Yes.
Yep.
oh my God.
And the
look
fact
at
that
this
those
film.
two, I mean, spoiler alert, those two characters wind up in the car together, like with
At
their
the end,
goals
yeah.
overlapping, was amazing. They both had this crazy journey that led them to the same place.
Yeah.
You never would have thought
Beautiful.
that at any other
Beautifully
point.
written.
Yeah,
and I'm
very
telling
good.
you, like from a performance perspective, like Sam Rockwell, I don't think
He's great.
I don't think I've ever seen somebody portray that kind of like douche character so well.
Wait, what
He was
about the
such
guy
a
from
young
I,
douche.
Tonya, the bodyguard
Tonya?
guy?
I, Tonya. Yeah, he was great. but
Did anybody
not
see
like
that
Sam
movie?
Rockwell.
That
Not
movie
like
is
Sam
awesome.
Rockwell in this other film, like he was amazing. Because that other guy, he's imitating someone. That's different. This Sam Rockwell designed this character. And he was
Well, he was
brilliant.
great in
and
Galaxy
then he
Quest.
has this
Yeah.
intimidating and mood. He's great
Yeah,
in
that's great.
everything. He's awesome.
All right, you had your hand up?
Yeah, Wilson Fisk from Daredevil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
From
As
what
a bad guy, to me, he's like the best bad guy ever lived.
Oh,
He's not really bad. I mean, he's like, you want to fight for his city, and
Yeah.
you have good motive, but it's just.
Who
he's-
who
This was Fisk from Daredevil.
Vincent
Oh,
D'Onofrio.
Yeah.
okay. Oh, Fisk.
Yeah, King
Okay.
Fisk.
Thanos.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thanos.
No, he's basically Thanos.
Thanos is a great villain.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, at parts of the movie, you're like, yeah, he's got a point. You know, you can say that about a villain.
Yeah, but also
I just thought of
Wilson
another good one,
Fisk is
Tyrion.
exactly the same.
Tyrion.
Tyrion
Yeah.
Lannister.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what
I mean,
came from.
oh without a doubt.
Oh,
Tyrion is
awesome.
amazing.
There's so many good
So-
characters.
And
in
Arya,
Daredevil.
yeah, there's
Arya.
so many. I mean, George R.R. Martin is like the master
Daenerys.
of
I want to
creating
put in a plug for
complex
the
characters.
Fargo TV series, where every character
Court.
is the best character.
Yes, it's true.
Everyone on that series is amazing.
The
I
movie
love-
was fantastic,
I
and the
love the
series
series.
has been fantastic.
So there is
The
a
series is
uniformly
great, but
great.
Frances McDormand was on my list
Yeah,
for,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
for
She's great.
Yeah, she's
in
awesome.
Fargo. She's just amazing
Yeah,
in
yeah.
general. She's one of my
But the-
favorite actors, but she was amazing in that
Yes.
film.
And but what I find really interesting about the TV series is they really like everyone has a cool character.
Yes.
Everyone's interesting. Everyone.
So,
is
all right. This is something we haven't
smart.
talked about, but yeah, you bring it up because these are not superheroes. They're not fantastic. There's nothing extraordinary really about these characters. What the Fargo series shows is how every single person has a full life and backstory,
Yes, absolutely.
a whole suite of likes and dislikes and motivations, right? And so if you delve deep onto any person out there, you see this rich tapestry of weirdness
Yeah.
and motivate, right? And that's what
Right.
Fargo shows you. We see these characters, like you see these little private moments,
I
you know,
love that. I love
where
and
they,
that's why
the
Game
wife
of
is like
Thrones so
is
good.
looking
Well-
through the magazine, and you can realize, oh, she's got bigger plans for herself, man. But that's going to
Yeah.
get her in serious trouble,
Yeah.
right?
And-
It's fantastic,
and
fantastic.
that's an amazing thing to sit down as an actor
Yeah.
and have that
Yeah,
at your
For
disposal.
sure.
Oh my
And
God,
they're not
it's like
afraid to
feast,
just follow a
Yeah.
character along. There was a great example of this in Westworld this season when they focused on, I can't remember the character's name, but it was the Native American.
Yeah, that was a good
character.
episode. That was
It
like the best episode.
One of the few really good episodes.
It was the best
this
episode
season.
this season.
But
yeah.
they just took this
Oh,
one
yeah.
kind of guy that was been on the fringe,
Yeah.
and they just went in on his whole life, and it was
Yeah.
the best episode of the season.
So I
Yeah,
have a
little-
character I want to talk about. How much time we have? 15 minutes?
No, about 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Now,
2 minutes?
Do we end at 5?
5? Yeah.
it's 4:45 according to that
Yeah, yeah.
thing on the one.
Yeah.
All right, so
That's only after Jim 5 minutes.
and I want to, you know, of course, I'm going to talk about Darth Vader, not Anakin, actually Darth Vader. I want to talk to you guys about this and get some feedback from everyone. It's more of like I'm asking a question, but Darth Vader is a very interesting character in especially movies 4, 5, and 6. Let's just focus on that version of Darth Vader. First of all, he's a villain.
Straight up villain.
We don't really know what he wants other than to be in control. We don't have this
He
clear.
wants power.
Yeah, he wants power, which I think is it flies in the face of what you and I always say, Steve, which is we hate mustache twisting villains. However, even though he's got,
but you know there's more there.
there is more. Yeah, this is what I'm trying to figure out because I love Darth Vader. I think the
Yeah.
character is amazing. He has by far the best badass entrance of all time in any movie.
100%.
When he walks on the ship, like that the setup is great. But what is it about Darth Vader that makes him so utterly compelling and interesting? And then now, like, you know, of course we're way into my life. I love the character still to this day. Court, I live with you. You don't tell me this. I'm like dying to know what the answer is. We live together. What's the answer?
See, I think it's competency for it, right? Like the very first time we meet Darth Vader, he comes in and he is balls to the wall and he knows exactly what he's about. He's decisive. He's, you know what I mean? He comes in, he knows exactly what to do, where everybody else is sort of like, I don't know. He's like, he's like a.
So he's a James Bond type character where he's uber competent.
I think a lot of it is also acting and sound design.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean,
anything.
The voice that's that voice.
It's not, but it's not just James Earl Jones, right? It's the effect they put on the voice, the breathing thing.
And it's his theme. It's John Williams. You know, it's his. It's the.
And the costume.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
But you say that you had that same reaction before we learned he's Luke's father?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
No, well, you asked a very interesting question because I just told these guys when we were talking about this that I hated Darth Vader when I was a kid, right? I wanted him to get killed at the end of movie 4 so bad. I couldn't believe that he got away at the end. I was blown away. And then during the conversation, I go, holy shit, I just realized that I hated him so much because they did such a good job with the character. For me to hate him viscerally means the actor was great. The voice actor was great. The music was great. The directing was, everything had to be great for me to hate him. But then that hate turned into love, which I find odd because I adore Darth Vader now.
Well, it's interesting too because our son loves Darth Vader and loved him before he realized it was father. I had to like point out, like, did you catch that, Dylan? Did you catch it? Did you catch that it was his father? And he goes, that's his dad? What did he say? He goes, but dads can't be bad guys.
So then I had to tell him, but Dylan, ultimately he becomes a good guy, so he actually isn't a bad guy because he's a good guy.
That's so cute.
Does anybody have a Darth Vader comment?
I was going on to the next one.
I'm sorry, we're talking about Darth Vader. No, go ahead. Go ahead, you can tell.
I was going to say 2 movies that destroyed a heroic character that was established in earlier things. And they make me so angry, I wish I'd never seen them.
What is it?
One was the old series of Mission Impossible had Mr. Phelps, this heroic guy who was the ideal project planner, who could do everything. And in the first movie, he was a traitor.
It was Peter Graves, right?
And the second one is Logan, and you know why Logan.
Yeah.
I just hated what they did with those 2 characters.
Yeah.
What was the second one?
Logan.
Oh,
yeah. A lot of people had a problem with
that.
that.
That was hard to watch.
Wolverine, Logan?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just 2 quick ones. One is there is actually a Hayden Christensen film in which he plays a character well.
Oh no, I've seen him.
Oh, he's a
okay, we talked about. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Lies.
We talked about the Phantom edit of the first 3 movies, and if you watch the Phantom edit, he's a fine actor.
Yeah, supposedly it's not.
And seriously, you can edit him to the point where he's fine. He's perfect. It's amazing.
Just edit all of it, and it's great.
Confident, what is you say?
Confident, adequate.
Confident,
There's a
adequate.
film he did called Shattered Glass.
I saw that. That was good.
Stephen Glass, who was the perpetrator of the journalism hoax at the New Republic, and really plays a character who is both doing a lot of things wrong and under tremendous pressure really well. And the other thing is, you talked about the characters from 2001. I just saw the what Christopher Nolan calls the unrestored version of 2001.
That's what I was talking about.
The de-restored version of 2001, which was amazing. But one thing I really noticed in that was how angry Bowman is at the end. That when he is pulling Hal apart, as Nolan describes it, he's having the computer sing Daisy because he wants to hear the computer die.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I saw a much angrier Bowman
in
that than I saw the million other times I've
He was having a bad day. Yeah, no question. Yeah, he was pissed.
I really love Serena from The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
She's a great character.
That's a character with an arc.
She is a fantastic
Especially
character.
with, spoiler alert, the last episode.
Don't
say
you dare.
You know,
it's
an interesting thing to think about because we have, because of TV and how great TV shows are today, they're movie quality and they're better than movies in my opinion, just because they have more time. We get to know this character. We see all these flashbacks. They could dedicate an episode to moments in her life. And in a sense, it's not fair because how do you? It's hard. You have 3 seasons, 20 episodes, 100. Game of Thrones, 100 episodes, versus a 2-hour movie. I think it's harder to do it in a 2-hour movie, and I respect if they can pull it off in a movie versus a TV show. I give them props.
Jay, I have just one last question about 2001.
Yeah.
A question for you. 3 minutes, really? 3 minutes?
It's not 3 minutes. Oh, you're asking me. Holy shit, you really want to do this?
I think we're out of time.
I think we're done. Guys, do me a favor. Be honest. Let me know if you like these kinds of workshops, because Brian and I write a lot of the workshop programming. Just let us know right now by a round of applause if you like this kind of workshop. Good. We'll keep doing it.
Round of applause if you don't.
It was these two guys.
Because
our idea.
Like, very seriously, if you guys think this is, so one thing that we're often concerned about, especially at the workshops, is that it's not interactive enough, or that
it's not about skepticism, it's not about science.
Yeah.
But we want there to be an art infusion too. Like, we want NECSS to have an art angle to it. And this is, you know, when we do this, it's about that. And we talk about stuff that we know and love. Right. You know, we're not going to talk about stuff we don't know about.
Mainly, we want to make sure that you guys think this is worth the additional money and you know that you have to pay to be here. Yeah. And if it's not, like if this is too passive of a thing, we want to know that, and then we'll try something different.
Come up and talk to us if you have any ideas or comments. And thank you very much. We really had fun today.
Great. Thanks, guys.
So, I have a video for you.
Okay.
The Incredibles.